नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण।
Hare Krishna.
Okay, so last week we were discussing about kama, lust. Okay, so I think I somehow failed to upload the last time's class, which is never satisfied. So we discussed this, that lust is never satisfied. So the more you try to satisfy lust, the more it will burn. Apurimanam achala pratishtam. Apurimanam achala pratishtam. If I keep repeating this verse. 1 second. समुद्रम आप प्रविशन्ति यद्वत् तद्वत् कामयं प्रविशन्ति सर्वे सशान्तिम् आपनोति न कामकामी. So Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter, verse 70. So Krishna says that the desires actually flow like a river flowing into the ocean. There are always desires coming in, right? And desires, of course, as we progress in spiritual life, material desires will reduce automatically. But till we come to some stage, and this is called anartha basically, and we have to pass through this anartha nivritti. But these desires keep coming in, right? And what Krishna is saying here is that even if these desires come, one who does not strive to satisfy such desires, strive, right, which means that struggling hard, okay, let me make this happen. So one who doesn't strive to fulfill or satisfy his desires, only he can attain real peace. So the same thing is here. So actually, because the lust burns like fire, in fire, when you put some ghee or this one, it will only burn more. It is not going to reduce, because some people say, I'm going to, if I eat this, then next time I will not feel like eating. But it will never end. It will never end. Of course, it will end when frustration kicks in, right? And this is another way by which people move from karma to jnana. When do they move from karma to jnana? Is when, in spite of their attempts, like Arjuna says, nimittani viparitani. Whatever, if one tries, if it fails, after repeated failure, one will give up. Actually, in Bhagavatam, there is one, nice narration about a prostitute. And it said, that she's in need of money, and, she's trying her best, to get a customer. But then she waits like that, and then it goes, like it's 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the night. And then she's waiting and waiting and waiting, and there is nobody. So because she had so much of, she was frustrated because she had a need and it didn't get satisfied, and she becomes peaceful with that, in that frustration. Why? Because she gave up the desire, saying, okay, I'm not going to get it. So unless frustration kicks in, people will not come out of material desires. And this has been going on for like lifetime after lifetime, that we have been running behind material desires. So here Krishna is very clearly saying, see, if you want to progress on the spiritual path, don't water this plant called lust. Don't put ghee to this, fire called lust. It is going to just burn more and more. And what is the problem with this? Somebody might ask, okay, bro, what is the problem? What is the problem with lust? The problem with lust is it doesn't give us happiness. And we are looking for happiness. So why it doesn't give happiness? Because when we are in this attempt to fulfill lust, we don't really bother about what kind of action we are engaged in to actually fulfill our lust, right? So it could be karma, which is within the boundaries of Veda. It could be vikarma, and mostly in Kali Yuga, it is vikarma. People want to do action in a way that it is not approved by Shastra. And vikarma means papa, and subsequent karma phala is suffering. So by trying to fulfill this lust, we end up in accumulating more papa, which means that future suffering. Right? So we should understand this, saying that, this lust is never satisfied. And very clearly in this verse, especially here, because there are a lot of youngsters, so I want to touch upon this point. Prabhupada says that this material world is called Maithunya Akara, shackles of sex life. In the ordinary prison house, criminals are kept within bars. Similarly, the criminals who are disobedient to the laws of the Lord are shackled by sex life. Advancement of material civilization on the basis of sense gratification means increasing the duration of material existence of a living entity. So, and this whole thing about, getting attracted by the opposite gender and getting entangled in this whole, pursuit is actually see, this is Lord's creation is so beautiful that if you go to an ordinary prison, in an ordinary prison, we can see ourselves wearing a different type of cloth. Then we are behind bars. Then we are to follow certain rules and regulations, etc., etc. So we know that, okay, this is not a normal condition. This seems abnormal because there are people outside who are free, who are moving around, doing their things, etc. But I'm stuck inside. So people understand, okay, so jail is not a good place to be in. But the Lord's, this whole, this Maithunya Agara, right? The 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 kind of attraction to this opposite gender is such a kind of shackle, like a chain, that nobody wants to get out of it because it is seen as very nice or likable or wantable, right? And it is very unlike a jail kind of situation. Though we are in the jail, we are in this jail called material world, right? Who comes here? Only people who have turned away from the Lord come into this material world, which is a jail. But we don't want to get out of it. So beautiful creation, right? Like, can we just understand and appreciate, right? Like Krishna's creation, Krishna is so intelligent, right? He's created a system from which we cannot, normally don't want to try and escape, because we feel so happy, we feel so natural. Like I was saying some other day, Brahma, one of the first things that he created was forgetfulness about our real identity. So he created this illusion as the first step in the creation of this material world. So we are stuck badly in this, trying to fulfill our material desires. And Krishna is saying here, don't try to keep fulfilling these desires. It will not end. Then in the next verse, we discuss this also partly. Indriyani panama mano buddhir asyadhishthanam uchyate eter vimhoti esha gnanam avrutya dehinam. So where is this lust sitting? Lust is sitting in three places. Lust is sitting in the senses, in the mind, and intelligence. Now this is very interesting. Lust is sitting in such places that we cannot very easily get rid of. Okay. Lust is sitting in our senses. Means what? Our senses have to be gratified. Natural. This body is there. There are senses. The senses have to be gratified. They have to be given whatever. They have to be made happy, in simple words, right? So gratified. Now, there are two ways of gratifying the senses. One way is what most people are entangled with, which is a material way of gratifying senses by material desire, fulfilling material desires. So, lust is sitting in the senses because whenever we see any object, we want to always look at it as an object of our happiness, not that of the Lord. So lust is sitting there saying that this is for your happiness. This is for your happiness. Okay, you're seeing something. Okay, this boy sees a girl and says, okay, she's for my happiness. Girl sees a boy and says, he's for my happiness. We look at something, we look at some fruits in the market, we say it's for my happiness. So lust is sitting in our eyes, ears, mouth, specifically tongue. People want to eat all kinds of stuff because my happiness. This is lust. So lusting is sitting in the senses. So as soon as we contact any object, the first thing that comes to our mind is I want to enjoy. So lust is sitting in the senses. Lust is sitting in the mind. Okay, you're not in contact with any objects, you're not hearing anything, your mind is also engaged in this lust. Okay, how can I make myself happy? How can I give happiness? How can I get happiness? See, we should understand one more thing. Mind during creation, mind is created in the mode of goodness. Okay, so there's a nice way of understanding, while it might look a bit speculative. Mind is in the mode of goodness. So mode of goodness means generally it has submitted itself to its master. Mind's master is false ego. Unfortunately, it is not intelligence. So mind has surrendered to false ego. False ego wants happiness for me, mine, you know. So mind is working very, very diligently, very, what should you say, like very good servant. Mind is working all the time. How can I satisfy false ego? This is lust. So even if you're not in contact with any objects, our mind is engaged in thinking about how to satisfy false ego, how to fulfill the lust. Okay. No problem. Technically, mind has to be under the control of intelligence. Now, even if suppose somebody's mind is under the control of intelligence, which is very rare, most people's mind are not in the control of intelligence. Okay. So this is the misbehaving mind. That is why Krishna says it is the greatest enemy, because it's not even following the rules of creation. Krishna has created this body such that senses, then mind, then intelligence, then false ego, then soul. This is the hierarchy. But now mind, instead of reporting to intelligence, is now reporting directly to false ego. So intelligence also is mixed with lust, because intelligence is supposed to control the mind, but intelligence is also affected by lust. So then we use Krishna given intelligence to satisfy our own whims, our own lust. So the whole system of this body primarily, except soul. So if you see, except the soul, all the elements, the gross, the subtle, which is mind, intelligence, false ego is anyway corrupted. Everything is corrupted with lust. So we are actually in a very bad shape. As a soul, we are in the enemy's camp, technically. But we chose to be in the enemy's camp. That is where the problem lies. So Krishna is saying, okay, see, senses are filled with lust, mind is filled with lust, intelligence is filled with lust. So obviously the next question is, what should I do? Now, how do I get out of this entanglement? So then Krishna answers that in the next few verses. So he says, Tasmat tvam indriyani adau niyamya bharatarshava papmanam prajayenam gnana vignana nashanam. So what is this lust? This lust is gnana vignana nashanam. So this lust will not only destroy gnana, which is our knowledge, it will also destroy vignana, which means it will destroy self-realization. Okay, just let give me a minute. This hawker is making too much of noise. Okay, so it will not just destroy gnana, it will also destroy vignana, which means that if we live in this world of lust, it will destroy self-realization, which means that we cannot progress towards Krishna. Right? So that is why Krishna calls this as Papmanam Prajayanam. Papmanam, it is a great symbol of sin. This lust is a great symbol of sin. Why? It doesn't have to be gross sinful activities, right? Just trying to enjoy independent of Krishna is sinful. and it is the symbol of sin, because it is going to destroy the knowledge that we have and also self-realization. So even if you have knowledge saying that, I am servant of Krishna, it will destroy it. So Krishna is saying here, so in the very beginning, one must curb this symbol of lust. How? By regulating the senses. Now, obviously, then the question is, how do I regulate the senses? Because senses are already not in control, because we just read in the last verse. So there are two ways to do this. The first is there are do's and don'ts. That is why in the process of bhakti, we talk about niyama, yama, niyama, right? So we talk about rules and regulations, do's and don'ts. Okay, we have to follow the 4 regulative principles, because this is the platform of dharma. No illicit sex, no intoxication, no meat eating, no gambling. These are 4 are pillars of adharma. So we have to avoid these. So first thing is to follow rules. Now there are some rules which are non-negotiable, which means that we cannot break these at all. If we break this, then we cannot hope to make progress in spiritual life. So these 4 are pillars. Now, apart from this, there might be other small things which might come. For example, we understand, we already read in the 3rd chapter that we should have only prasadam. But then, we might look at something and say, oh, you know what, before I came into Krishna consciousness, I used to eat this. I used to like it so much. Right? Suddenly we might get dragged to, into something. And then these are not, these are not mentioned as regulative pillars that important, but they are important for spiritual progress. So for this, Krishna has given a solution already in the 2nd chapter. Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehinah rasavarjam rasopyasya param drishtva nivartate. So param drishtva, we have to see or experience the higher taste, not the higher taste restaurant, the higher taste, which is the taste the senses have to enjoy or get that happiness that they're looking for in the process, through the process of bhakti. So for example, when we are looking at the Lord, the deity form of the Lord, it's so beautiful that we should forget any other beauty of this material world, because the eyes want to see beautiful things. We look at the beautiful form of the Lord. So I want to show the beautiful form of Radha Madhav yesterday. So beautifully they were dressed so beautifully yesterday. 1 second. Yeah, so beautiful this is. So if you have an aesthetic sense, if you like to see nice things, you can't. Can you see anything nicer than this in this material world? Just look at how beautiful they are. Life size. If you go to Mayapur and we look at them like this, and they look at us and we are gone. We forget ourselves. This is beauty. Now, this beauty, actually, it is said that this beauty is, the beauty of this material world is nothing compared to this beauty. But our eyes are jaundiced. Jaundiced, right? Like a jaundiced patient, you give sugar cane, he cannot taste the sugar. So this is the highest beauty, but we still cannot see the beauty. But we keep in the association of devotees, we keep, like looking at the Lord, looking at the beauty of the Lordships. Then slowly, we will understand that there is nothing else which is more beautiful than the Lord. So similarly, when we taste prasadam, we'll understand, okay, there is nothing more tasteful than tastier than prasadam. So like this, then the tongue should be satisfied, the eye should be satisfied, the ear should be satisfied by hearing Krishna Katha, hearing Kirtan. Tongue should also be satisfied by chanting Krishna's name. Now, when we engage Vindayur Vachamsi Vaikunta Gunanu Varnane, Ambarisha Maharaj, he engaged all his senses in the service of the Lord. Right? So all his senses were happy. Okay, am I audible? My internet is unstable, it is saying. Okay, so all his senses are active in Krishna consciousness and happy. So they are not going to look for any thing of this material world for personal sense gratification. So this is the secret. The secret is that we have to engage in the service of Krishna, then automatically we'll regulate the senses. We've heard this example multiple times, right? Vishwamitra, who was a Kshatriya, and then he later was trying to become a Brahmarshi, right? And he was engaged in severe austerities. First of all, Kshatriya. Kshatriya is a determined guy, right? On top of that, he's doing severe austerities. Still, he fell to Menaka. Just the jingling, tinkling of her ankle bells. He fell. But Haridas Thakur, even though Maya herself, in the form of a prostitute, came and sat in front of him for 3 days, he didn't even budge an inch. Rather, he made her a devotee. Why? Because the senses are so happily engaged in the service of Krishna, they cannot find any lower taste. They are not attracted towards any lower taste. And please understand, this is the answer to our search for happiness in this material world. Our search for happiness in this material world gets fulfilled when we engage our senses in the service of the Lord, because they experience that happiness that they have been looking for that, or we have been looking for in this material world, unfortunately, for years and lifetimes. We've been looking for water in the desert, where we'll get a drop of water, which is never going to satisfy us. So this Krishna consciousness is like a full bottle of water in a desert, which we just got by mercy of great devotees and acharyas. So that is the way to regulate the senses. Of course, we follow some basic rules and regulations, and then for everything else, we just engage. More and more we engage our senses in the service of Krishna, the more and more they will become automatically regulated. Prabhupada elsewhere says, like, senses are like serpents, but then, it should become like without poison, right? So which means that we should purify them. Purification happens by engaging our senses in the service of Krishna. And of course, in the purport, Prabhupada says that this lust is actually a perverted reflection of love of God. See, we have love of God is the highest perfectional stage of emotions. And that love for Krishna has got converted to lust. So love for Krishna is so powerful. That is why this lust is so powerful, because it is just perverted. It has the same strength as love for Krishna. So it's very, very strong, very powerful. So it's got converted, it's got spoiled, perverted. Now it's very difficult to undo it. We undo it by actually exposing the senses back with love of Krishna. So we expose it to activities of bhakti, which are meant to revive our love of Krishna. So the lust gets treated. It's like, that sometimes Prabhupada says, right, like milk products, indigestion because of milk products is cured by milk, by curds, right? The same, it's a byproduct. Milk product is a byproduct of milk. Curd is also coming from milk. So some byproduct is catered to by another byproduct, right? So like this, or you can think of thorn being removed from the thorn by using a thorn, right? So the lust is removed by love for Krishna, right? Because love for Krishna is deteriorated to lust. So it's another form which we are curing by giving back, reviving our Krishna consciousness. So this is very important. This is the hierarchy, verse 42 that I talked about. Indriyani paranyahur, indriyabhya paramanaha, manasastu in parabuddhir, yo buddhe paratastu saha. So the working senses are superior to dull matter. So we have dull matter, all these things around us, non-living things, they're all dull matter. Right now, the senses are superior to dull matter, because senses enjoy the dull matter. If senses are not enjoying the dull matter, what is the use of dull matter existing? It's useless. So senses are superior because they know how to use this dull matter. Now mind is higher than senses, because mind is called the master of senses, boss of the senses, right? And then on top of the senses is intelligence, and above the top of the senses, the mind. Top of the mind is intelligence, and above that is the soul. So Krishna is now giving a hint to how do I control these misbehaving senses. So you have to go through the hierarchy, right? But like we said, senses is contaminated, mind is contaminated, intelligence is contaminated, false ego is contaminated, but the soul is not contaminated. Soul is pure. Soul is pure consciousness. But soul is in a misunderstanding or a misconception. Soul simply is thinking that I belong to this material world. This is my body is me, and it is in some misconception. But the soul by nature is pure. It is not contaminated. So by knowing that the soul is pure and we engage in the activities of the soul, when the soul becomes engaged directly in the activities of Krishna, then the senses automatically become engaged. So this is the whole process of Param Dristva Nivartate that I talked about. And then gradually with Gnana, so Gnana is also Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayajitaha Janaiti Ashu Vairagyam Dhanam Cha Yad Ahetukam. So knowledge also develops with Bhakti, knowledge also develops as well as detachment also develops. Knowledge develops to tell us, okay, we don't belong to this material world. We belong to the superior world, to the spiritual world. We are not part and part of this world, right? We are foreigners here. And then our destination is the spiritual world. So the spiritual world is, what is that? Shriya Kanta Kanta Parama Purusha Kalpataro Dhruva Bhumi Chintamani Ganamai Toyam Amrutam Katha Ganam Natyam Vamshi Priya Saki. Katha Ganam Natyam. Spiritual world is Katha Ganam Natyam. Katha. Like, hearing. Ganam. Katha is Ganam. Whatever you are speaking, whatever you are hearing is like music. Right? If you are walking, it's like dancing. Every day is a festival. So yesterday we were actually in our Bhagavatam class. So we are having this regular Bhagavatam class in Kannada. So in the second canto, we started discussing about the Vaikuntha. So beautiful description about Vaikuntha, and from Monday we're going to discuss about description of the Lord and how his form is, how he looks, etc. Right. So when we hear all this, get all this knowledge about this Goloka, Vaikuntha, Goloka, Vrindavan, etc., and we see how beautiful it is, then we should get attracted. You should get attracted. Like I said, we can either have material desires or spiritual desires, but we should develop these spiritual desires because naturally we are attracted to material desires because that's our nature in this material world. We are bound here. So we should develop spiritual desires. So when we hear and when we get this knowledge, then we understand, oh, okay, no, this is not the place for me. Let me get out. So then what do? We train our intelligence. Now, intelligence requires what? Intelligence works on knowledge. So we get the knowledge. And then Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, that's why we read Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, you are not the body. Natveva ham jatunasam natvam neme janadipa na chaivana bhavishyamaha sarve vayam ata param. He's saying all of us are independent individual souls. Okay, this is knowledge. Okay, now intelligence starts working. Okay, if I am not soul, then what do I do with this body? Why am I so attached to this body? Yes, okay. Jan vashamti jirnani yatha vyaya navani grinati naropanani tata sharirani vihaya jirnani anyani samyati navani de. Okay, this body is temporary. It is just like cloth, taking off the cloth in the morning and wearing new clothes. So I should not get too attached to this. This is gnana. So on the basis of gnana, intelligence worked, and now it concluded saying that, okay, I am not going to get attached to these things belonging to this material world. So when we apply this in our life, then it becomes Vijnana. Oh, I had this knowledge. The situation came when I would have otherwise been attached to my body, but I used this knowledge and I applied it, and I was able to successfully overcome my situation. So this is Vijnana. So Bhagavad Gita is Gnana Vijnanam Sahitam. So then we train our intelligence by getting knowledge. And then when intelligence is trained, intelligence will slowly, gradually start controlling the misbehaving mind. Mind will still continue to misbehave. That is why our acharyas say that mind has to be beaten twice a day, once with morning with broomstick and evening with chappal. Not literally, but practically we should not give too much importance to the mind. Our mind troubles us. How many of us have experience about this? It's a rhetorical question. Everybody experiences this, right? So there is rhetorical means the answer is yes.
Yes.
How many of us have experienced? Everybody has experienced, right? So the mind is troubling. Mind is just troubling all the time. So we should not give too much importance to the mind. Mind has to be treated like a spoiled child. How do we treat a spoiled child? We don't spoil it further. We ignore. Child is crying, no, I want chocolate, I want chocolate, I want chocolate. All these days it was crying, I was giving it chocolate. Now today I've realized I'm not going to give it chocolate. Okay, it's going to cry, it doesn't matter, let it cry. Next it's going to start shouting. Still, I'm not going to give. Right? So we should just ignore. Now for ignoring, that is where the next verse comes. Okay, so beautiful. Let's see Bhagavad Gita. That is why it is completely, there is a beautiful logical flow of verses. But for that, we have to understand, try to understand in that way. And I keep telling devotees, all this realization comes when we are trying to preach. And right, this whole flow is now the realization from this class for me as well. So verse 43, Krishna is saying, Evam buddhe param buddhva samstapyatmanam atmana jahi shatrum mahabaho kama rupam durasadam. So mind is misbehaving. You require mental strength for taking care of a very misbehaving child. Right? It is going to keep doing noise. It's going to shout, cry, shout. You have to be very strong. Similarly, to control this mind and the senses which are misbehaving, we need a similar strength, but not material strength. This is called spiritual strength. So this is a beautiful verse. Thus, knowing oneself to be transcendental to the material senses. Who is transcendental to the material senses, mind, and intelligence? The soul is transcendental. Soul is higher than the mind, intelligence, and the material senses. Knowing this, that we are transcendental, one should study the mind, steady the mind by deliberate spiritual intelligence. So we should use spiritual intelligence, like I gave the example of using knowledge that I am not this body, I am spirit soul, using that intelligence, which is called spiritual intelligence. Why spiritual intelligence? Because it is based on spiritual knowledge. So it is spiritual intelligence. And Prabhupada, in this translation, in the bracket, he says Krishna consciousness. So by Krishna consciousness, deliberate Krishna consciousness. Deliberate means what? I want to do this. I want to go back to Godhead. So this is deliberate. Right? It's not like fluke or unintentional. It is intentional. By intentional Krishna consciousness, one should steady the mind. Steady the mind, because mind is flickering. It wants to go here, there, everywhere. Steady. Okay, nothing doing. No chocolate. Full stop. No misbehaving. Okay. Now what is required? Spiritual strength. And he says, and thus by spiritual strength, conquer this insatiable enemy known as lust. So two things here. One is we should know, first of all, that we are superior. We are not bound. As soul, we are not bound to this body. We are not like controlless in that sense. Many people think that, oh, I'm lost. Right? Say, you know, like this body, material, these modes of nature are very powerful. We are all stuck. Yes, but no. Soul also has free will. Soul can use its free will. Soul has to use its free will, engage in the actions of Krishna consciousness by spiritual intelligence, Krishna consciousness, by engaging in these activities of bhakti again and again and again and again. Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Kirtaniya Sada Harihi, Sada, always, right? Continuously, day after day. By engaging in bhakti, what happens? We develop what is called as spiritual strength. How do we understand that we are developing spiritual strength? Very simple. So for example, when we started Krishna consciousness and somebody say fast, we fasted for 2 hours, 3 hours, and we were like, oof, I can't fast. It's too difficult to fast. Okay. First year, you know, first few Ekadashis, next Ekadashi, as we keep progressing, we are seeing now we are becoming stronger and stronger. And that's not physical strength, that is spiritual strength. So by the process of bhakti, we are now able to tolerate our hunger. So similarly, we will get the spiritual strength to conquer lustful thoughts. But we should not try to experiment with this. Okay, it's very dangerous. Maya is very, very powerful. Okay, but we will see that as we progress in bhakti, we become stronger and stronger and stronger. And hence, because we develop more and more spiritual strength, we will conquer this enemy called lust. Insatiable, it is insatiable, it cannot be satisfied at all. But we will still conquer it. Now, what is important for this? We may or may not have. See, the process of bhakti is perfect. There is no doubt in that. If followed properly, we will achieve desired success. Our problem is not with the process. Our problem is with the way we are following the process, right? Which means that, one day we are here, another day we are here, one day we are here, another day we are here. We are in a sinusoidal wave. So one day we are doing 16 rounds, beautiful. Then next day 6 rounds, then another 8 rounds. And we can't do like this. So we can't do the sinusoidal wave. We should be like this. Actually, we should be like this. It should keep on increasing. So if it doesn't keep on increasing, then we are not going to develop spiritual strength. If we do like this, then we can't develop spiritual strength. So for us to be increasing linearly or non-linearly also, it's fine. We require the right kind of association. When we associate with those kind of devotees who can help us remain on this trajectory, right? See, it's like, I keep saying, right? So uphill, when you're trying to cycle uphill, it's not easy. It's already so taxing and you're tired and it's just not getting over at all. And you're pedaling and pedaling and pedaling and pedaling. 1 second you might think, oh, I'm so tired. Okay, the goal is right there. I'm visible to me. Maybe for a second, let me rest. Now what happens if you rest for a second on an uphill slope? You're going to come back faster than the pace at which you made progress, which means that if it took 10 days for you to climb, you might come down in half a day. So giving up, becoming lax, not serious, not tivra bhakti. So if you don't do tivra bhakti, what is tivra? Akama sarvakamo va moksha kama udaradihi tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. Tivra means what? Without karma and gnana, without desire for karma. Gnana, though we don't want. We don't want impersonal gnana and all that. We are not attracted to that. We are attracted to karma, sense gratification. Tivra bhakti means without sense gratification. So when we do this Tivra Bhakti and when we associate with devotees who are doing Tivra Bhakti and we help each other make progress, then what happens? This cycling business doesn't stop. We are tired, but then, we are talking to our friends and, other co-devotees and then like, no, bro, come on, don't give up. Okay, we are just there. Okay, pedal, pedal, pedal. We continue. I'm tired. Prabhu, no, don't give up. Pedal, pedal, pedal. So we keep pedaling, pedaling, pedaling. Finally, we will reach our destination. So that is why we have to have the right association. If you have the right association, then we can conquer. Actually, Prabhupada is using the word conquer. Prabhupada is a very military, he's a fighter. So he's always in his military mode. Conquer the lust. Yes, okay, we put the flag and said, okay, we conquered lust. So beautiful, right? So all this is possible simply by sticking to the process of Krishna consciousness and practicing it in the association of like-minded, strong devotees who are ahead of us, who can help us remain on the path. Okay, and our biggest problem, our reason why we are in this material world, reason why we are suffering again and again, which is this lust, can be very easily conquered by the beautiful, pleasing, happy process of Krishna consciousness. Okay, so I will end here. I would be happy if I can answer some questions on this, because this is a very practical issue that everybody has to deal with. Without dealing with this, we cannot make progress. So we have to make up our mind to overcome this material desire, this lust. Okay, I will stop my talk and will let you all ask questions if you have any. Otherwise, today we will finish our class early.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
So I want to ask, like, is it good if we do meditation before chanting to increase the concentration? So I've tried it once. I felt like the concentration is increased. So I just want to ask.
No, it's fine. I mean, see, finally, okay. So, how to understand this mantra? Mantra means man trayate iti mantraha. The mind is supposed to be controlled by the mantra itself, and we are chanting the Maha Mantra. Okay, so in course of time, the mind will anyway get controlled by the Maha Mantra. Okay, but initially, if you think, see, this is whatever helps you to concentrate in your chanting, you can do. If you think you want to stand upside down and it's going to help your chanting better, no problem. Right?
Okay.
Because the whole idea is to make us hear and chant properly. But important thing is that we should try to increase our chanting, because see, when we are chanting only 1 or 2 rounds, we will not understand the power of the chanting.
Correct.
Right? So as we increase our rounds, we will start seeing that now the chanting is having its effect. Right? And slowly and gradually, we discussed this in a seminar on chanting. Slowly and gradually, our mind will come under our control. It will take time, but to your question, if you think, spending, for example, 5 minutes meditating and then chanting and it's helping you, absolutely no problem.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Please increase your rounds. That was my hint there.
I know, definitely.
Okay.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Siddharth.
See, regarding chanting, I make a target minimum of 16. I do it. But what is happening is, up to morning 11 o'clock, 11:30, so many things are, domestic things are disturbing.
Okay.
After 11:30, 12, I get some very peaceful time. I sit in a balcony, veranda, and then start chanting. Up to 2:45, 2:30, I chant. Maybe I'll do up to 10 rounds. By the time I'll feel hungry, I'll have food. Then 3 o'clock, I'll come to the class.
Okay.
So I make some breaks. Is it okay?
Yeah, it's perfectly okay. See, best time to chant is Brahma Muhurta, right? 4:30 in the morning. If that's not possible, 5:36, whatever is possible, right? See, one of the things which is practical for everybody is before other people in the house get up. If we can get up and chant, of course, you are aged and I understand. I know my aged parents, they find it difficult to get up very early in the morning. But if that is possible, then, you should do it. Otherwise, yeah, these domestic things are troubling. But taking a break is not a problem, but it is also advisable to say if we can do at one stretch. But this is all for mostly, youngsters, etc. Right? If with age, it's okay. Whatever works for you, right? Because sometimes people cannot sit for so long, people cannot concentrate for so long, or like you said, you have other issues. As long as you can chant, and when you're chanting, you're able to focus nicely, it is good enough.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna. Okay. Okay. Anybody has anything else to say, or all ready to control lust, conquer lust?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Like, so So yeah, Arjuna is accepting that this is very powerful enemy. So what practical steps do we take when the enemy attacks? Yeah,
Okay.
we should be very careful. Like,
Very good question.
yeah, ideal situation is to
No,
make
no
sure
ideal
the enemy
situation.
doesn't attack. But when it
Mm,
attacks, what practical?
okay, so this is a very interesting question. See, what happens is when this enemy is attacking, there are early indications. Early indications. Then there are more serious indications, which means it's getting closer and closer and closer. Now, normally what actually see there, okay, let me take a step back, right? Deep in our mind, deep in our heart somewhere, we don't want to overcome this. Okay? Because we have experienced so-called happiness because of this in the past. And because of our conditioning, somewhere we think, it's okay. Now, first thing is in our mind to say that, okay, I don't want, this is not right for me. First thing, right? Very clear conviction saying that I don't want to get stuck in this material desire, whatever is going to attack me now. First, that's the first step. Because even if you have subtle liking for it, you will let it happen. Right? You understand what I'm saying, right? You will let it happen. So now the second thing, like I said, there are early indications. Early indications. What are examples of early indications? Can you state any situation which we should try and discuss, right, in the process of overcoming this, attachment to material desires? Anybody has anything to suggest which we can take as a instance or a case study for understanding what might be early indications? So I'm saying there will be early indications.
Like you're mentioning in the class, outside food.
Outside food, okay. Outside food. So okay, so if you think about outside food now, obviously say we have not gone to the shop yet. Okay, no, because even for us to be going to the shop, it requires that desire should have developed slightly, right? So early indications is, suppose say we are talking to somebody and somebody just talked about, you know what, I had this very nice, I don't know, pav bhaji outside, and whatever is your favorite is your favorite food item. Now, when you start, when that dhyato vishayan pumsan, when that thought comes into the mind, just the thought, we should not mull over it. We should not process it. Okay? We should not process it even for a few seconds. This is the whole process of ignoring. Now, unfortunately, we are not strong enough. Then we ignore, it comes back. We ignore, it comes back. So generally what I practice is I try to chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra loudly and praying, right? We discussed this in our chanting seminar. You have to cry literally to Radha and Krishna saying, oh, this thing is attacking me. I am going to have a tough time. Please, 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 please help me. Early indication. And you should immediately, if possible, take the right kind of association, clear yourself from that situation. That is, early indication. Somehow try to distract yourself, get into reading here, do something. Get the mind out of it. Okay, now what happens is first time you succeed. Again, next day, same thought comes. Again, you succeed. Third day, same thought comes and we fail. This happens initially. Okay, and it's okay. It's okay to fail. Okay. We should not think that we have to win in the first go itself. Now, this happens another time. Okay, we ended up, maybe we took that pav bhaji, we ate. Now, as soon as we eat, what should happen to us? What should happen in our mind?
You must have not had.
We should feel
Like,
miserable
regret.
about ourselves. Yeah, we should feel serious regret. like, miserable feeling we should feel. Oh, Krishna, what nonsense did I do? I tried twice, but I could not control it. This is a very important junction where we again pray to Krishna saying that, please give me more mercy. Next time I want to at least push it to 5 times. This time I managed twice, thrice I succumbed. Next time at least I should push it for 5 times, 5 days. Something like this, right? So again, next time situation comes now between these two situations, right? Between this one occurrence where you become so conscious about your not so good act to it happening again, what we should do is we should make this as a part of our daily prayers to Radha and Krishna. So one of the things, again, I'm going back to the chanting seminar because we spoke about a lot of things there. If somebody has not heard it and you're serious about bhakti, please hear these seminars. Okay, it's there on our YouTube channel, JP Nagar Bhakti Sadan. You can go and there are how to improve chanting. There are 4 sessions. Please hear. So one of the things that we had discussed, which Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, is that we should very fervently pray to the holy name to remove our anarthas. So as part of our daily chanting process, we should pray and beg, saying, please remove this anartha from my heart, because Krishna has the strength to remove it. But he wants to see how much we want it. How much we want it, how do we express to Krishna? By praying for it every day, every moment. Now, gradually, Krishna becomes pleased by our prayers, by our surrender, by our dependence on him. He will give us mercy. But this might not happen overnight. It might take some time. But we should be utsaha, nishchaya, dhairya. We should be patient. We should be determined. We should have enthusiasm. And we know Prabhupada said this is war against Maya. So she is going to attack. Don't expect her not to attack. And we know that we are in the protection of Krishna. And gradually what will happen as we make progress, higher taste will take over. Higher taste will take over. Higher taste will take over to such an extent that the lower taste cannot even linger. So not even like a Babaji, onion, outside food, that, like which spoils my consciousness completely. No, I don't want. No, I'm happy eating rice and rasam at home. But this is because of higher taste, because of love for Krishna. Like when as we develop more and more attachment to Krishna, we will say, okay, no, Krishna doesn't like it. I don't want to do anything which Krishna doesn't like. Simple, full stop. This might take some time, right? But when we come on to that, Vishaya vinivartante nirarasya rasavarjam rasoktesya param drishtva nivartate. So that is why I was saying param drishtva. We have to keep experiencing this higher taste, which means that we should engage more and more in activities of bhakti. The more we engage in the activities of bhakti, the more the senses enjoy experience happiness. The more the senses enjoy experience happiness, they are not in want. They don't need anything else. They are happy. They're satisfied. Then these things will stop troubling us gradually. That okay?
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you for the beautiful class and answer.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, I want to add one thing as
Yeah.
a comment and also one question related to that. So Prabhupada writes that sense objects are superior to senses, right? So
Senses are superior to sense objects.
no, he mentions, right, in the purport, if you see, sense objects are superior to senses.
Sense objects are superior to senses.
Yeah, that's why my doubt was that what is the basis of that hierarchy?
Where is this?
In the verse 42.
Working senses are superior to dull matter. Where is it saying that senses are superior to sense objects? Sense objects are superior to senses.
Yeah, this is the point, right? So
No, where is it in the purport? Sorry, I missed this.
in the puppet, if you see, in the fifth line, ultimately ends in supreme. Bodily action.
Hmm.
One
Yeah,
second,
science
I
objects
think I
cannot be higher than
missed the
senses,
line.
Prabhu.
Prabhuji, it is there in the middle of the first para.
Where is this?
Okay.
Ata Upanishad.
Yeah, first para only.
Oh, Kata Upanishad. Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, in the Katha Upanishad, it is said that objects of sense gratification are superior to the senses.
No, I think we should check this because clearly this verse is stating opposite.
Yeah.
Okay, let me check this.
Yeah. So, I mean, my doubt came here. So is it because sense objects pose attraction? So because
That way, maybe.
Yeah. So that way it can be very good enlightenment for us that senses are nothing but hands, tongue, working senses and knowledge collecting senses, right? So in that way, these are even degraded than the sense objects, which is basically produced by nature, and they last for very quick time, and after that they are over, right? So all the life we
I
try
have a
to
doubt about this, Prabhu. I have a doubt about this because see, it is opposite to Bhagavad Gita. It can't be opposite to Bhagavad Gita. So I will clarify this. Right, because see, this verse clearly is saying that the senses are superior to dull matter, right? And sense objects are made of dull matter.
Yeah.
Bhagavad Gita is also Gita Upanishad, right? So it can't be opposite to Katha Upanishad. So let me clarify this. I will check with Vidwan Prabhu, and maybe there is some mistake, or instead, yeah, let's not speculate. Let's try to understand if it is mentioned there elsewhere, and if so, why. Okay, so I will send this across. And thanks for, I had not noted that. I think it's a good observation.
Okay, bro.
Okay, so this is 3.42. Okay. Anything else anybody wants to say? Otherwise, we can close. Okay, nobody has anything else. Okay, so hope everybody is happily engaged in devotional service. You're all chanting every day. Anybody here who is chanting every day, or what should I ask? I want to make people talk. I don't know so many devotees here. Is everybody chanting here? I know Seturaman Prabhu is chanting, Anu Prabhu is chanting, Rupa Mataji is chanting,
Yes,
Nima
Prabhuji.
Mataji is chanting, Patil Prabhu is chanting. Gayatri Mataji, I think you had also joined the chanting seminar, right? Gayatri Mataji?
Prabhuji.
You are joined,
Hare
right?
Krishna Prabhuji. Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay, so you're chanting, I guess, so because you're attending that. So, Kamala Mataji. Should Kamala Mataji, you're there? Okay. Priya Mataji. Is this the first time you're coming here? Priya and Priyanka. Rupa Mataji, is that your friend?
Prabhu, I'm not sure, Prabhu.
Okay. Priya Mataji and Priyanka Mataji. Can you please unmute yourself? Okay. Priyanka Mataji left the meeting. Okay. Okay, fine. So we can't. Saubhagya Mataji. I know. Yeah.
Saubhagya Mataji, she was from the...
I'm chanting. Daily I am chanting.
Okay, very nice. Okay. Chandrababu Prabhu, I know Venkop Rao. Okay, can you please let us know if you're chanting? Is this
new entrant.
You're a new entrant. Yeah, Chandrababu Prabhu, you're in Kannada class also, no? So I know.
Yes,
Yeah. Venkobarao. Maitre Mataji, no? Okay, Venkobarao. Prabhu, you've been attending, right? I think I've seen you for a few weeks. Hare Krishna. Sorry, can't hear you. You're saying something.